It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today is the mayor himself, Your Honor, Michael Becker.
Hey, Paul.
Michael, as you know, owns... Tell me, Michael, again, how many units?
We've done a little bit over 5,200 units. I think we own about 3,700 units currently. We've done, 25 acquisitions, and we've sold 10 with 2 pending sale right now. So we've been busy over the last 4.5, 5 years.
And $110 million in equity. I mean, how many K1s do you guys have to issue?
I think for 2017 tax returns, I'm anticipating doing a little bit over 500 K1s this year. So that's a lot of K1s.
Wow. You definitely have a lot of good friends out there that have invested with you. So the question that came out today, which I think is an important one, actually, you know, how do you go from 1 to 5,200 units? That's kind of the macro piece, but the micro piece is easier than that. Is how do you go from 0 to 1? How do you buy just even one property?
Yeah, so the first deal, if you listen to a bunch of the podcasts, you heard me tell that the first one is so hard. Going from 0 to 1 is very difficult. Then going from 1 to 2 is not a little bit easier; it's exponentially easier. So really focusing on the first deal is really most critical for most people. So I thought we'd just kind of take a little bit of time and talk through that. So I've seen many people go from 0 to 1 on the first deal and been really successful. But maybe one of the people we can use as an example was someone we had on the podcast a few months ago. There's a client of ours, Anna Simpson. So she's a good example. We had her on. If you go look back on the back episodes, you can hear her story. But she was someone that I think did it the right way. So I met her. She's a realtor. She owned a bunch of single family homes, and she was trying to figure out how to get an apartment. So the first thing she did, she went out and get educated. So that'd be the first thing I recommend you guys do. So if you listen to the podcast, that's a good start. So get educated. There's plenty of good books out there as well. One of the ones that I like are the couple books that Ken McElroy, my friend, wrote, the ABCs of Real Estate Investing and the Advanced Real Estate Investing Guide. So find some books. That's real basic level stuff.
One thing that I do want to add is not only get educated, but actually get into a network that has people that if you just want to be an owner of multifamily properties, you also have to have equity partners that put money into your deals. So if you just get educated and then it's up to you to find the equity partners, the people that are going to put in the 20% or 25% of the deal, that may be difficult if your education group does not have a network or an ecosystem. So I think that's important too. Yeah,
and joining a mentoring program is certainly helpful. There's a bunch of them around. There's several good ones here in DFW. That's right, Paul. It's very important to make sure that, it's not only about the education, so you can learn how to do it, but if you don't have the right infrastructure around you or system around you to be able to, find deals, source deals, find equity, then you're not going to be able to actually be successful at the time. So that kind of maybe leads to the second thing that I think is real good for people to do is before you do your own deal, I think it's great to go find a competent sponsor and be a passive investor alongside somebody else. So that's, I guess, my number 2 step. And I saw that Anna did. So Anna actually invested in, I can't remember how many deals, but multiple deals, 4 or 5 deals as a passive investor with other people. So that allowed a couple things for her. One, allowed her to get in the game. She got to observe multiple properties, multiple sponsors, and how they put these deals together, how they interacted with their investors once they actually closed, as well as she got to make, some profit on the deals that she invested in as well. So being a passive in other people's deals, I think are a good way to start.
Yeah, being a passive is an excellent way to start into an apartment transaction. And I think probably the biggest highlight besides, networking with other passives in somebody else's deal is you get to understand how the KP, the key principal, the lead of the transaction, the guarantor of the transaction, how do they communicate with the limited partners? Do they send out monthly statements of how the property's doing based on what the management company does? They send it out quarterly? Do they not send it out at all? They tell you what's going on. Do they take videos of what has been updated to the property? So you get to kind of feel and see what other property groups are doing. And then you could use that and kind of figure out, well, I didn't like the way I was treated in that deal, but I want to do it this way because I want to do it the way that I liked and I felt better on doing.
Yeah, so you get all those benefits as well as it also kind of pads your REO schedule, your real estate owned schedule as well. So when you're eventually getting yourself set up to do your own deal, the more you can show the bank that you have real estate experience, the better, right? The next step that I think I see a lot of people do is they'll either join someone else's deal as a co-sponsor or just simply sign on someone else's loan as a key principal or KP. So we talk a lot about that. So that's a real key critical step that I've seen a lot of people do that really kind of sets them up right before they're ready to do their own deal. So when you're 5 months, 6 months away from being ready to do your own deal, if you go sign as a key principal on someone else's loan, that's trustworthy, that you feel comfortable about the deal. You just don't want to go sign on some of the loans, just sign on it. But if you get on the right loan, you can sign as a key principal, then all of a sudden now you're in the Fannie Mae / Freddie Mac country club. You have entered the system, you're a KP on a deal, and then now you have the relevant experience when it comes time for the next step, when it's time to do your own deal, that you have, that experience. And then when you do your own deal, you make sure through this entire time you're networking, you constantly go into meetup group events or go into these various mentoring programs. I'll have these events and on a monthly or quarterly basis, you go to them, and that's where you can really go network and effectively find other passive investors. And when it comes time to do your own deal, then you're ready to go with your equity. And we'll talk on a future podcast too how you effectively network both investors and brokers that you source deals. But that's kind of the general steps that I saw, and Anna was a good example of that. So she came in, got herself educated, and then tip number 2, she went and invested passively in other people's deals. And then third, she signed as a key principal when someone else was a lead in the deal. And eventually she was ready to do her own deal. And so I think she actually brought on another co-sponsor with her on her first deal. And now she's been a lead on her second deal all by herself. So those have kind of been a natural progression. I've seen many people do something similar. I think that's a pretty good kind of playbook. If you want to be serious in this business, be a serious syndicator, serious operator of apartment complexes, you got to put your time in. You got to kind of do these steps. It's kind of like I've used a ladder analogy before. It's like climbing a ladder. You got to do it one rung at a time. So you can't skip any rungs. You got to do them one at a time. You can do them a little quicker, a little faster, but you can't skip any or you're going to fall down. So those are a basic playbook of how you get from 0 to 1.
So when I was talking a little bit about that educational mentoring and having an ecosystem, just reminds me, I had a conversation last week with a guy that wanted to buy a 68-unit apartment complex, and he had paid big bucks to be into an educational program, and he was going to put an LOI in. I mean, he looked at the property, signed everything up, and he came to us and says, not only do I want you to do the loan, but we also want you to find the equity. And I was like, well, for people who are brand new, we're not going to do the equity of the deal. Now, if you have 5 transactions or $20 million worth of stuff, we'll help you source the equity. But if you're brand new, I said, when you took that educational training stuff, did you have an ecosystem? Did that group provide an ecosystem that you could have? Some people get into these transactions that they just want to learn. They don't want to do the deal themselves. They just want to learn how not to be taken advantage of. So they go in and get educated. I said, did you talk with people that just didn't want to be leads, that they just wanted to educate themselves and put passive money into the transaction? Does the group you were with, did they have anything like that? And the answer came back no. He goes, I said, that's going to be tough because now you're going to be talking to all your friends and family to try to get your money, and that's not something you want to do because you got to educate them again and again and again on why to invest in apartments. So you really want to have an ecosystem of people that kind of all think the same. They all kind of see the benefits of real estate, and they understand that again, a lot of these guys do not want to manage their own stuff. They just want to put money into what they perceive as good deals. So make sure your educational group has that ecosystem that you can fish in that pond to get equity to fund your deal. Anything more?
Yes, that is right. Yeah, it's no good at getting these deals tied up if you can't actually go deliver. The 2 highest and best uses of time for any apartment syndicator or multifamily lead is to find deals and find money. So if you're not finding money or finding deals, those are the two highest and best uses of your time. Everything else, while there's a lot of important things and critical things, it's kind of noise in the grand scheme of things. Find deal, find money. That's where you make the bulk of it. And then, the rest of it, you got to have, rely on team members to help you operate and execute the business plan and make sure that, you're doing good quality deals and executing on your business plan. But find deals, find money. So there's no good getting educated if you can't actually deliver on the deal when you get one tied up with equity, or if you can't even get one tied up in the first place.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that deal is I asked him, because he needed $1.5 million to raise. And how much did he raise? Well, just $100,000. And I said, well, it's, your two things you're going to have at risk. You're going to have your money and your reputation. So I would not even get into a deal until you kind of have the equity lined up of what you're going to do. So back away from that LOI. Do not sign that LOI or do not sign the PSA, the purchase sale agreement. So because you're going to have reputation risk in your market that you could not execute because you could not find the. I said, and you're going through the Christmas time and you're out there trying to raise money. It's just going to be tough. So my advice was to back away from the deal and re-engage when they had some money. Michael, if someone wanted to kind of understand a little bit about how you do, I mean, you've gone from 0 to 1, but you've gone from 0 to 5,200 units. If somebody wanted to learn or talk to you a little bit about it, what's the best way for you?
Yeah, the easiest way to reach out to us is go to my company's website, which is www.spiadvisory.com. That's SPI, like spy, advisory.com. And there's a contact us form. So you just fill that out. We can get a 10, 15-minute telephone call set up. Always happy to talk to people that listen to the podcast and reach out that way. That'd be the easiest way, Paul.
And that if you do think or value the podcast, if you do us a favor, go on to Stitcher or iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. We do appreciate any of the comments that you guys make. And then don't forget, if you go onto our website, which is Old Capital Podcast, we have a 15-page white paper report on structuring apartment financing. That's something that if you're going to start going from 0 to 1, you've got to understand a little bit how these deals get put together. Or listen to some past podcasts. I think you'll get some great information. But also within that is that we'll send you the due diligence report. And Michael, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the sample due diligence checklist is basically the due diligence checklist that we use at my company, SPI Advisory, when we're putting LOIs out there or doing a purchase sale agreement, that we want to make sure we get a certain amount of diligence information from the seller. So things like service contracts and past rent rolls and bank statements and all the stuff that you need to properly evaluate an apartment. When you're putting offers in on it, you're doing it essentially based off of a broker's package, T12 and a rent roll. So all the other stuff, you make these assumptions when you're making an offer. You need to go through and make sure you get the proper information that you can verify a lot of this information and kind of do your best when you're putting a multi-million-dollar asset in your portfolio. You need to know what you're buying. So that'll help you right there.
That's it. Is there anything else that we should talk about?
Really, we say before, but if anyone would definitely find value out of the podcast, make sure you refer a friend, post this on your Facebook page or LinkedIn. We really definitely appreciate everyone getting the word out about the Old Capital Podcast. We, strive to provide good content that's, pretty detailed for apartment syndicators or investors. We want to make sure that we try to spread the word as best as possible.
Sounds great. Well, that was the mayor of Beckerville, Michael Becker. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.